Forward.
We are security. Around 38,000 federal police officers want to be measured by that motto. On water.
Fire.
On land. And in the air. A strong force for Germany, the Federal Police. The Federal Police protect Germany's maritime borders, control traffic, and combat environmental crimes. The crew is currently folding out the sea railing on the helicopter landing deck.
Stop. Not so fast.
We fold this out for helicopter operations. Otherwise, the helicopter may collide with the railing if it drifts sideways. Normally, it prevents people from going overboard in rough seas. Today, we're conducting onboard flight operations as part of our sea patrol training. We have the chance to land and take off using all common types of helicopters available. We have the opportunity to refuel these helicopters, which in turn allows for an extension of their mission duration. We also have the option of bringing in special units or materials if needed. Bridge overdeck railing down. All clear for drone takeoff.
Before the helicopter from the Fuhlendorf flying squadron arrives, the commander flies a drone.
We have a UAS on board, which is an unmanned aircraft system commonly referred to as a drone. We also have a second drone with us. The drone is equipped with a high-resolution camera. We fly the drone into the exhaust plume of larger vehicles to measure the exhaust gas values and determine whether the fuel used by the vehicle complies with regulations, including the level of sulfur content.
They're collaborating with the European Maritime Safety Agency. The Camcopter S-100 has a maximum takeoff weight of 200 kilograms and can fly at speeds of up to 240 kilometers per hour.
We use drones for various purposes, including critical infrastructure such as offshore wind farms, gas pipelines in the North Sea, and data lines. Additionally, we use them for border protection in the areas close to the border to monitor vehicles and their behavior. The high-resolution camera and thermal imaging camera on the drone are also useful for search and rescue missions, especially at night.
The drone has a 6-hour flight time and a range of 180 kilometers. The team receives a safety briefing from Flight Deck Officer Georg Rachel before onboard flight operations.
The Eurocopter EC-155 is arriving. It comes from the stern and is brought to the port at a moderate altitude. You always be cautious of its rotor blades. They descend slowly when you're rotating at low speed. Therefore, crouch down while approaching the helicopter to ensure your safety. We secure the aircraft on deck. The ship is always in constant motion, but the helicopter is secured on deck so the pilots can leave the aircraft.
The crew will tie the helicopter to the deck with straps.
We have a few things that require your attention. First, be careful not to let anything come into contact with the radar device located at the front of the aircraft. Second, avoid the areas around the front engine inlet and the aft engine outlet. There are no-go zones. Steer clear of them. Everything behind the aft is fine. Good. Any questions?
The drone has completed its mission. The flight deck is now ready for the helicopter. In the hangar, the team is putting on protective equipment. Before starting the flight operations, the fire extinguishing monitors are being tested. They are powerful extinguishing cannons that are operated from the pump room located below deck.
This is our fire pump, capable of pumping 380 cubic meters of water per hour with an output of 450 kilowatts, equivalent to roughly 600 horsepower. We use the suction line to draw seawater into the pump and then the pressure line to direct it towards the monitors. We use this system for external fire extinguishing and during flight operations. It can also be used in the unfortunate event of a helicopter crash on deck.
I need 2 men to spray the deck.
The Bamberg has several fire hoses.
Quickly, it'll be here in 7 minutes. When a helicopter is landing, loose parts can become dangerous if they fly into the air. All loose parts must be sprayed off before landing.
The Federal Police helicopter is only a few nautical miles away. Patrick Stelle takes up position at the flight control station.
I'm the link between the commander and the helicopter. My duties include handling communication with the helicopter, managing flight deck lighting, and operating the fire extinguishing monitors.
The bridge is responsible for leading, directing, monitoring, and giving instructions and orders. We supervise everything.
The team and the flight deck officer search the helicopter deck for loose objects. Safety first.
Check carried out. Flight deck is clear for transfer.
Warsaw to all positions. Start of flight operations.
Joachim, do we have master green?
4 or 5 minutes.
We have master green for 4 to 5 minutes until 1345.
Everything is clear on board the Bamberg. Now, it's up to the pilot. A decommissioned German army barrack in Hesse. Here, the evidence and arrest unit of the Hünfeld Federal Police Department train in the fight against terrorism.
We have the following situation. There's been a terrorist attack in the city. 3 perpetrators have escaped into an office complex. It is possible there are innocent bystanders in the building. Today's objective is a successful emergency intervention, positioning, and arrest of the perpetrators, as well as the evacuation of bystanders. Any questions?
In the scenario, 3 terrorists are said to be entrenched in this building.
Today's program includes training on tactics, approaching and securing buildings, and establishing a robust control point.
The commando team approaches the occupied building in a convoy, maintaining a safe distance. They're responsible for securing the area. 2 camouflaged snipers are already in position, ensuring that they have a clear view.
We're commencing the reconnaissance trip towards the target.
2 officers in a special armored vehicle get a clearer picture of the area.
The vehicle captured a view of the target object, a 3-story brick building with an extension. Access options on the sides are visible from both 3 and 6 o'clock. No contact person identified.
The BFE Plus was set up as a robust support unit for the GSG-9 in 2015 after the terrorist attacks in Paris and Belgium. It can also be requested for support by the special task forces of the state police.
Stay.
Yep.
Keep going.
The task forces of the BFE Plus are recruited from the specially trained evidence recovery and arrest units of the Federal Riot Police. Gunshots have been fired from the building. The perpetrators are armed and determined to use their weapons. The men of the BFE Plus attended a 2-month special training course with the GSG-9 counter-terrorism unit. They were trained in tactical procedures against military-trained perpetrators and in the use of powerful handguns.
Please, drop the gun.
The attacker opened fire. The Federal Police had to take him out.
You got him?
In this case, the attacker is a colleague. The shots were fired with blanks.
Our exercises can feel artificial, but we always provide fresh challenges. Today, the team doesn't know there are only two perpetrators. One must have escaped. That adds complexity to the mission.
The BFE Plus is employed in terrorist attacks and other life-threatening scenarios. Here, the attacker is holding 3 hostages.
Police, come out. Come out. Hands up. On your stomach.
The suspect surrenders and is taken into custody.
There are several options for trainings. Training with active offenders is best, as it simulates real-life scenarios and allows for unpredictable reactions. We avoid rigid frameworks for police simulation, so you can act freely.
The BFE Plus apprehends attackers, safeguards bystanders, and provides medical aid and evacuation. This civilian has several gunshot wounds. The team trains realistically to handle high-stress situations. The Federal Riot Police has its own medical team. The paramedics are always at the ready. In the case of a real emergency, injured persons would be transported in a police ambulance to a civilian hospital. The ambulance vehicles are not marked as police vehicles.
Primarily, we care for our injured colleagues, nobody else. Being unrecognized as police is an advantage.
At any time, officers can identify the vehicle as a police car using magnetic boards. Back to the operational training of the BFE Plus. One of the 3 terrorists is still at large.
You can drive out here, have a safe journey.
The BFE Plus have blocked the access road. They check every vehicle. Once someone is caught in the trap, they need permission to get out.
Police, hands on the steering wheel, window down, very slowly. Both hands out of the vehicle. Get out slowly, down on your knees. Get down on your stomach.
The last culprit has also been caught. The training is over.
We were able to coordinate our tactics, and our first aid measures were efficient. The troops worked well together, and we achieved all of our training objectives.
A helicopter from the Fuhlendorf Flying Squadron heads towards the BP-82 Bamberg on the North Sea. The crew on the ship's bridge wait with bated breath.
A little bird, here he comes. Here he comes.
Oriole approaching.
Oriole approaching.
The Federal Police has 94 helicopters of different types.
Roger that. Ship is steady on flying course 050 with 11 knots. Relative wind red 10 with 20 knots. Green deck for land on. Green deck.
For the pilot, green deck means that he can land and that the ship will not change course.
The Airbus H-155 is a versatile helicopter that can be used for transportation and reconnaissance purposes. The maritime version of this helicopter comes equipped with emergency floats on the sides, which open up in case of a ditching.
The runway is moving. The pilot must adjust the speed of the helicopter to match ours. Our task is to move the runway in a way that minimizes rocking of the ship. We must also consider the wind conditions, as the pilot requires specific conditions to safely land.
The helicopter may not land on the flight deck if the wind speed exceeds 35 knots. Wind force 7.
Landed.
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 The pilot is preparing to take off again in the Airbus 155. Each engine has a takeoff power of 955 horsepower and a continuous power of 865 horsepower. It also features a low-vibration 5-blade rotor and a tail rotor. The maximum takeoff weight is just under 5 tons. It has a cruising speed of 280 kilometers per hour and a maximum speed of 324 kilometers per hour.
10 miles out, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes to go. Helicopter will be back in 5 minutes.
The crews of helicopters and rescue ships undergo regular training for landings on the helicopter deck. Now, the helicopter is moored on deck, and the team gets ready for this task. The federal police employs the H-155 for reconnaissance flights and rescue operations. Among other things, landing on a ship always follows a standardized pattern.
At the Federal Police, we follow the NATO standard procedure for helicopter landing. This means that the helicopter always flies over the port side until I gesture it to move forward. Typically, this occurs when the nose is aligned with the ship's beam line, at which point I guide it to hover over the helicopter landing deck. Once the helicopter reaches midship, I signal it to descend and land. After that, there's another signal indicating that it's safe to disembark. Oil landed.
Due to the rotor blades, the team approaches with their heads down. The straps are tied down with hooks, first on deck and then on the helicopter itself. Once all the straps are secured, the team is allowed to leave the deck. Only then does the officer signal the pilot to turn off the engine.
Helicopter secured.
The helicopter can no longer slide off the deck, even in heavy seas. Pilot Simon Kolkowski switches off the engine.
Aircraft secured on deck, engine stopped, rotor stopped.
Helicopter bunker operation will commence shortly. Smoking and open lights on deck prohibited.
The H-155 is also available in a civilian version. The Federal Police helicopter has special equipment.
The searchlight is incredibly bright. It creates a stadium-like atmosphere at night. We use a thermal imaging camera to search for missing persons in both daylight and nighttime thermal mode. This camera is also used to search for people in the water. The winch is the most crucial factor. It has a rope length of 90 meters, which allows us to rescue people from great heights or high superstructures on the ship. The winch is operated from the inside by a winch operator who uses an operating handle to move it up and down. The operator then looks under the helicopter to ensure that we are directly above the person to be rescued at the winch point.
The pilot occupies the right seat, while the co-pilot sits on the left. There is a passenger seat at the back. An operator at the monitor workstation controls the cameras and the winch. There is enough space for a patient who requires a lying position. Flying over the sea can be more difficult for pilots than flying over land.
The main challenge of flying in the winter is the rapidly changing weather and the lack of visible contours. The horizon blends seamlessly into the water, making it difficult to rely solely on visual cues. As a result, pilots have to rely on helicopter instruments to navigate and land safely. There's always the risk of a technical breakdown, which may require the pilot to land on water. In such cases, the pilot must quickly transfer to a dinghy.
The Federal Police Air Group pilots are responsible for transporting special forces, such as the GSG-9, to operations at sea. The German anti-terrorist unit is deployed worldwide to combat piracy, international terrorism, and organized crime. For this purpose, the Federal Police primarily use the Super Puma transport helicopter.
It can get quite tricky, especially in complex situations at sea. This is because the weather can be stormy, with high waves. And unfortunately, things usually happen at night, making it even more challenging.
Today, The crew and pilots have favorable conditions for onboard flight operations. First, the team releases the straps from the helicopter and then from the deck.
Helicopter released.
The federal police act according to safety regulations.
At some point, the pilot wants to see that they've really taken everything they attached to the aircraft. That's why they line up here again, holding up the straps.
If a strap is still attached to the helicopter when it takes off, it would inevitably lead to a catastrophe.
Oil taking off.
The H-155 flies to its next mission. Operations on board the bomb bag went smoothly. Frankfurt Airport is one of Europe's busiest airports, with almost 50 million passengers in 2023. There are 2,700 federal police officers on duty at the airport. Senior Police Officer Hilal Ünal and Chief Superintendent Florian Böhm are responsible for border control, in addition to maintaining aviation security.
We're on our way to the train station. A woman there seems to be using a falsified document. We're trying to clear up the situation.
The federal police are responsible for rail services and therefore also for the airport stations.
A lift? You want to go down? Yes, a lift.
If you go out this way, you'll find a lift. You can use that one to get down.
The traveler is busy with 2 children. Her 6 suitcases are spread over 2 floors.
Most of the time, people ask us about elevators, toilets, and specific gates. It diverts our attention from other important tasks. But mostly, we can quickly assist them on the side.
The federal police, your friend and helper, and investigator when it comes to forged passports.
Morning.
The 2 federal police officers were called to the station guard.
What have you got for us?
We just picked up a female person. We found this during the search. A fake Swiss refugee ID.
Yes, I can see that just by holding it against the light.
Exactly.
The problem lies with the Swiss passport. Instead of having the photograph embedded in a polycarbonate plate, a conventional photograph is simply stuck on. If you hold the passport up to a light, you can see the edges of the attached photograph. You can see there's actually another person's picture underneath. It appears that she's misused the passport.
Did she say anything about it? What language does she speak?
She speaks German, but she doesn't want to say anything. Next to nothing.
The woman from the Congo has been picked up with forged documents before.
We provisionally arrested the woman after identifying her through fingerprinting procedures in Germany. So let's take her to the police.
The woman has a Swiss residence permit and must leave Germany. Her passport was taken by the federal police for forensic verification. Markus Damerau handles cases like this one daily.
In this box, you will find documents that have been found to be forged by border controls over the past 2 weeks. These documents include a wide range of European documents, particularly from Italy and Greece. This not only refers to passports, but also to identity cards from various countries.
He is currently dealing with a Greek passport that his colleagues at the checkpoint have found on a traveler from Turkey. The police superintendent first checks the watermarks.
On page 6 of the passport, the watermark appears to be significantly damaged. However, on turning the page, a clear portrait watermark with Cyrillic letters is visible, which is not present on the passport page. This suggests that some manipulation has taken place. It could be that the surface of the page, or at least part of it, has been removed. It is possible that a rejection stamp was previously applied, indicating that the holder was denied entry to a country, either in Europe or in a non-European country like the United States or Canada. The holder is likely concealing this information from officials.
Next, the forensic scientist puts the passport under the UV light.
We are examining each page of the passport under UV light. We suspect that one of the passport pages is fake. Upon close inspection, we notice that the numbering is absent from the page. Although the circle of leaves is present, it has been copied. We can see that there are completely different details in the print. The genuine page has individual leaves interspersed with branches and thicker lines on the opposite side. However, the fake page has thick drops of color. Although the fake page has a UV reactive imprint, it is most likely an imitation. This is what counterfeiters can duplicate. It could be a stamp, but in the same way, I can print blue, red, and green. I can also print UV reactive ink.
The officer examines the travel document under the microscope.
This is an 8-fold enlargement. We are comparing two passport pages directly. The suspected forgery page is on the left, the original passport is on the right. By comparing, we can see that the page in question is a forgery. There are no fine lines, solid colors, or details. The forger used a standard printer, which is commonly available. The person is guilty, but the question is, was this identity fraud or not?
Is the person really who they say they are?
On one side of the passport, there is a page that contains personal information and the photograph of the passport holder. This page also has security features such as microtext. On the right-hand side of the passport, there is an original page. The page that contains the personal details does not have these security features. It's an original passport, but with false identity information inserted. Two pages in the passport could be manipulated or exchanged to conceal information.
The passport was taken apart. 2 new pages were printed and sewn back together with the remaining pages. The federal police noticed the alteration. Commander Hans-Joachim Paulsen has ordered a sea rescue operation for the BP-82 Bamberg in the North Sea. Police Superintendent Toni Zell will lead the operation from the bridge.
I'm in training to become a watch commander. My responsibility would be to take charge of the ship during my shift. I would be responsible for making decisions within the limits of my abilities, up to a certain threshold where the commander would have to step in. Right now, I am preparing to take over the man overboard maneuver. We need to prepare the engine and everything else so that we have the highest power level possible using our large diesel engine.
The Bamberg has a diesel-electric drive. Olaf L. is responsible for the engines as technical watch commander.
We're in the engine control room, which is the central hub for receiving information. This is where all the power comes together. At the moment, our 2 main engines are not highlighted in green, which indicates that they're not in operation. The electric motors are currently running as drive motors, while both auxiliary diesels are running at almost full load. If the commander decides to drive faster, we would start the 2 main engines and switch off the electric motors.
Yeah, we know about it. They're turning on the big ones heading for Helgoland.
They're preparing to start the main engines to increase speed. An alarm has gone off, so the cooling water pumps are starting up. The first pump has started and is now functional, as indicated by the green light. The second pump is also starting up. The sound of just over 5,000 horsepower being set in motion is quite significant.
The Bamberg picks up speed. Paula Hinderer prepares for the mission. She's the only woman in the 19-strong crew.
We are currently performing a man overboard or person overboard drill. One person needs to go overboard. That person is me. To avoid the cold water temperature, I am wearing a survival suit. This suit is designed to retain body heat for a specific period and is buoyant, meaning that I won't have to use my own muscle power to swim.
The North Sea is 16 degrees Celsius on this day. It's 4 meters to the surface.
Bridge from the upper deck.
Listening.
We're ready on the upper deck for man overboard.
This is the first time I've jumped off the ship this far out.
We can start.
Man overboard on port side.
Man overboard for exercise. Man overboard for exercise. Clear port side to the control boat.
The rescue routine begins on the Bamberg. The 29-year-old female police officer quickly drifts off, a maneuver usually trained with dummies in seafaring.
We're now deploying the fast rescue boat with the help of the David. The David is advantageous as it can launch the boat even in a swell of up to 4 meters and is very fast. The only delay is caused by the people who need to equip themselves. Due to the weather conditions, we have to leave behind the work survival suits.
The minutes pass. For the police commissioner, the ship is getting smaller and smaller. An inspection boat belonging to the Bamberg is launched in the North Sea.
Can the boat be launched now?
Listening, you give the okay up there.
Boat is manned, all clear. Boat goes out.
Boat's going out. You okay up there?
Yep.
The boat is attached to the Hendrickson hook. The hook releases automatically when it touches the water. Now, the boat pulls with the line. The boat is only free when the line is released.
The mothership has continued on course. They can now sail back in the wake to rescue the person. It's an advantage for us, especially when it's dark.
The rescue team consists of 3 members led by Sebastian Ballmann as skipper. Their speedboat can travel at speeds of up to 84 kilometers per hour.
We have 2 engines with just over 500 horsepower. Prepare Jason's cradle.
Prepare Jason's cradle.
The Jason's Cradle is a dependable rescue system designed to pull injured or unconscious individuals out of the water with minimal effort. The system's robust plastic grid forms a tube when it is pulled in, allowing the victim to be rescued while lying down, thus reducing the risk of injury and preventing any unfortunate deaths during the rescue process.
And heave ho! Heave ho!
Although it may appear uncomfortable, horizontal rescue is a crucial aspect of water rescue.
Person out of the water. Person is responsive.
Person out of the water. Person out of the water. We're heading back.
The mothership needs to maintain a constant speed for the control boat to catch up with it. The skipper is in radio contact with the bridge. The maneuver becomes riskier with higher swells. The man at the bow gives the skipper a hand signal to indicate the distance to the line. After catching the line with the boat hook and latching it, the crane can take hold of the boat by the hook and hoist it back on board.
Boat's in.
Paula Hinderer made it through the rescue.
In an emergency, it doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable. The main priority at that moment is to get out of the water. It's cold and wet. In such situations, you often don't know how long the person has been in the water, especially if the weather is bad. The only thing that matters is that the person gets out of the water, that they are safe and alive.
The federal policewoman is about to face her next challenge.
Feet right on the edge, okay?
In rough seas with waves up to 4 meters or more, the control boat cannot be launched.
Man overboard, man overboard.
The commander has ordered that a sea rescue with the mothership be attempted, a risky maneuver on the open sea. Frankfurt Airport, a bustling hub where up to 1,250 planes take off and land every day, connecting travelers to as many as 285 destinations. The federal police is tasked with ensuring aviation security, a high-security area that is monitored by Senior Police Officer Hilal Ünal and Chief Superintendent Florian Böhm.
Das Vorfeld bestreifen wir
We patrol this apron 24/7 to check for any fence damage. We also look for people who we think don't belong here.
In the best case, they could be lost passengers. In the worst case, terrorists. But usually, they're just misbehaving passengers.
We're dealing with a significant number of incidents on flights. We have to check the fence and also investigate passengers who violate flight regulations. The crew calls us in to handle the situation. It's not always a physical altercation, and sometimes it's as simple as someone smoking in the restroom or being drunk and refusing to comply with the crew's instructions.
Special Vehicle 4 is used for safeguarding properties, securing areas, and deterring terrorist threats.
This is a 1990 model with a Daimler-Benz 6-cylinder diesel engine producing 170 horsepower. It can reach almost 100 kilometers per hour and can drive forwards and backwards via a gear lever. We don't really have a reverse gear per se. It has 8 gears divided into 2 groups, first to fourth and fifth to eighth.
The police inspector enjoys driving his classic car, which was built when Marcel Vella was 8 years old.
It's like driving an old truck, which means there's no power steering or assistance systems. So you really have to put in the effort. Yeah, it can be a bit challenging, but the concept makes sense. And I think it's good. You will definitely get people's attention when you hit the road with this vehicle.
The SW4 is a 10-ton aircraft protection vehicle. The crew size varies from 2 to 9 people and is primarily tasked with safeguarding vulnerable aircraft and their passengers.
It is necessary to have at least 2 people because there are a lot of blind spots that cannot be seen by the driver alone. Therefore, a co-driver is needed to keep an eye on everything and look out as well. There are 3 roles to be filled: the driver, the commander, and the system operator.
The police tank comes equipped with a G8 light machine gun that has an aiming device attached. The gun can potentially fire up to 900 rounds of 7.62 × 51mm NATO ammunition per minute in continuous fire. However, in practice, it can realistically fire 200 rounds per minute.
We have a system installed here, a blue rotating beacon. This one here is in place for the halon gas system. We also have a protection system that allows us to completely seal ourselves off from the outside world.
The armored vehicle is equipped with underbody sensors that release halon gas to extinguish fires. ABC defense is provided by creating an overpressure in the interior. The armored glass windows can have additional protection.
This is then activated with that.
The armored vehicle remains mobile despite full protection from hinged steel windshield covers. They protect against paint bags being thrown or gunfire.
We have driver's optics for both the driver and the passenger, but using these things can be very stressful. They don't provide a complete view, and you have a lot of blind spots. You need to use them with extreme caution. Nevertheless, the mirrors make you feel safe inside the vehicle.
The armored vehicle offers protection against hand grenades and heavy machine gun fire.
In the most extreme and life-threatening situations, such as an attack by terrorists or people running amok, we may have to use armored vehicles to ensure safety. In such cases, we need to find a way to reach the building with the vehicle safely. The special feature of these vehicles is that they provide ample space to move or evacuate forces safely. This is the advantage of using these vehicles.
The police tank is equipped with a lighting system on the multi-purpose attachment and a dozer blade for clearing barricades.
We have the option of installing a barrier here, a fence. It's like a big piece of fencing that blocks off the access roads and entrances.
Dranbaut, vielleicht entsprechende Zufahrten, Zugänge dann noch mit dem Fahrzeug abzusperren.
The SW4 can also operate in contaminated or poisoned areas following a disaster. It will not fail, even if the tires are shot at.
Eine Besonderheit des Fahrzeugs ist, dass die
The vehicle has a unique feature. The tires are equipped with a special technology. A metal ring inside each tire allows you to drive up to 80 kilometers per hour after getting a flat tire, or in case of an emergency like being shot at or hitting an obstacle.
Hier hinten gibt's dann auch noch zusätzlich die Möglichkeit.
The rear hatch can also be opened to access the vehicle from the back.
Und hier kann man dann rückwärtig.
It's designed to accommodate a stretcher in case of an injury.
Es ist auch so konzipiert, dass zum Beispiel im Falle einer Verletzung.
Another safety feature is the shield at the top of the vehicle's rear, which provides additional protection for people getting in and out of the vehicle after it has approached a building. This protects them if an object is thrown at them.
The German Federal Police has 46 specialized vehicles deployed throughout the country. They are still reliable and effective today. In a forested area in Hesse, a climate activist named Heini Grün is on his way to the trees. However, the activist is just a dummy belonging to the technical task force of the Hünfeld Federal Police Department.
Our unit specializes in operations at heights and depths. We're known as police climbers, who fetch activists from high places or deep waters, including tree squatters and activists who lower themselves from bridges.
The officers aim to depict the operational scenario as realistically as possible.
This is the police, the person in the green overalls on the platform. You are taking part in an illegal assembly. You are required to leave immediately. Have you understood me?
Heini Grün does not answer. The police climbers are deployed.
We need to manage the people who visit the tree houses, especially with larger ones where there may be 5 or 6 people. It can be awkward to be the only officer standing there.
The officer is secured at a height of 10 meters. A second follows.
You should be physically fit and mentally alert to handle heights, especially when responsible for another person. It can be exhausting. You have to keep a clear head.
The federal police officers are assessing the situation from high up.
Approaching from above is always the better tactical option.
Police climbers undergo regular training for these operations. A mistake at this height can be fatal for both officers and tree occupants.
The situation is as follows. The person is up here, arm in a metal tube. The cube is hanging over a hole in the bottom. If it slips, the person may lose their arm. I suggest we use the endoscope.
Check.
Watch out for the rope.
The activists' creativity sometimes presents unpredictable scenarios for the officers. They must use an endoscope camera to investigate a concrete trap.
He's tied himself to the plank.
It looks like Heini Grün has got himself into a sticky situation.
Activists often fasten themselves to a metal bar inside a concrete tube using a chain to prevent their release. We need to figure out a way to get rid of the metal bar. I'd suggest we take the demolition hammer and destroy the concrete cube until we can get to the tube.
More massive tools are needed here. The federal police prepare Heini Grün for the upcoming action.
You have to protect the person against things they can hurt themselves with. That's part of our job.
There is no other option but to break open the concrete block. A metal splint protects the activist's arm. It's hard work at a height of 8 meters. After 5 minutes, they can pull the arm out of the tube.
Person is released.
Shall we move him over to your side?
Heini Grün offers no resistance.
The activists are generally not so tired of life that they dare to resist us. They know that when they're lowered down, things are over. From time to time, we may encounter acts of resistance, but as trained police officers, we're equipped to handle them using appropriate self-defense measures.
Back on the ground, the activist receives first aid from a federal police paramedic.
How are you? How long have you been hanging there? Can you feel your legs?
Heine refuses to communicate. He will be confined to a storage room at the Hünfeld Federal Police Department for the next few days. "29-year-old police officer Paula Hinderer is adrift alone in the North Sea. The commander of the Bamberg has ordered a sea rescue.
Man overboard, starboard side.
Man overboard, starboard side. Take the helm, man the lookout.
The federal policewoman is to be rescued by her colleagues through the bulkhead.
Rescue zone on starboard side is being prepared. Open rescue zone, open rescue zone. Rescue zone is open. Get out of the danger zone. Modern ships have a rescue zone on the waterline, but entering it can be dangerous. Colleagues could go overboard. Securing them separately risks dragging them behind. So caution is needed when assessing the situation.
Police Superintendent Tony Zell is training to become a watch commander. He leads the rescue mission from the bridge.
We got a good swell right now. Take note of which side you're approaching from, the direction of the wind. This way you'll be able to stay on course and reach your destination without drifting away.
We have a large turning circle. Our ability to navigate becomes more dependent on the weather conditions, so the helmsman has to pull up properly to ensure we can do the pickup.
Paula Hinderer has drifted far away. From the ship, you can barely see the woman in the yellow rescue suit.
7 mil to starboard.
The lookout mustn't lose sight of her.
She's 0.3 nautical miles away.
It takes a few minutes for the 86-meter-long and 13-meter-wide rescue ship to turn around and return to the position of the colleague floating in the water. Tony Zell is now steering the ship from the starboard wing.
We have the target in sight, so we moved outside. The visibility is better here. I'm paying attention to the wind. I will position the ship so that the wind comes from the other side to push us towards the target. It's important for the lookout to keep a constant eye on the target. If there were more waves, visibility would be even more challenging. Without light, it would be almost impossible to see the target in the evening.
Wind to port, 69 knots.
The policewoman in the water must have nerves of steel. She depends on her colleagues on the bridge. If she goes under the 700-ton ship, it means sure death.
At the bow.
At the bow.
The Colossus slowly approaches the federal policewoman.
10.
10.
The men get ready for the rescue.
Distance 2.
The ship must move close enough to the person in the water so that her colleagues can pull her on board through the bulkhead.
And person rescued. Person well, conscious.
Everything went well.
Transfer back to bridge.
And close the rescue zone.
Rescue zone is closed and secured.
The only woman of the crew on board the Bamberg has proven her extraordinary courage.
Someone can go overboard any time. The person can get hypothermic very rapidly, leading to loss of consciousness and potentially sinking to the bottom.
When you're out at sea and a swell comes, it's quite different. The mothership, the big ship, suddenly disappears, and you're left with nothing around you. It's very impressive to see a ship like that sailing towards you. So, I'm excited for the challenge. It's an opportunity to grow beyond oneself.
The police officer has returned to the Bamberg after a daring mission and is now safe and sound on board. The Bamberg can now continue its patrol in the North Sea. The federal police, consisting of 38,000 men and women, work on land, water, and in the air to ensure the safety of Germany every day, year-round.